Welcome to Mechwarrior Online,
Achieved with CryEngine 3.
the original giant stompy robot game. Now, some of you will be familiar with it, some of you won't. It's a little bit of a niche genre, a little bit like Chrome Hounds, kind of a little bit like perhaps Steel Battalion. But for those of you that don't know Mechwarrior, it's a simulation game. About as simulation-y as you can get with giant robots, rockets and laser beams. But in this Let's Play we'll be showing you what it's all about. Hopefully the series will continue past episode 1 if you guys like it. Hopefully I can show you some loadouts, some tactics, the mech lab, and pretty much what this game's all about. So I'm going to have to log in now, because as the name states, it is Mechwarrior Online. There is no single player campaign, which I was a little bit disappointed with, if I'm honest. This game is really a niche in its genre. Saying in its genre, I'm really struggling to come up with anything that even is in its genre these days. You don't see anything released of this nature any longer. I've already mentioned a couple of them, but I suppose it's similar to Steel Battalion on the original Xbox. Probably the one that everybody's most familiar with will be the Armored Core series from Software. Now, that played out in a third-person perspective and was on consoles, but here we are, a fully fledged PC giant stompy robot simulator, and it's all first person. Well, we've logged in here, and the first thing you'll notice within logging into the server is the home page. Round about here we've got the current details of what's new. At the moment we've got Project Phoenix, which offers some mechs for you to buy. Assault Mech Madness, which changes roughly every week, every fortnight. You'll get a new deal on camos and different mech variants, which we'll talk about when we get into the mech lab. And then obviously on your far right you have the news feed. So basically that's details on promotions, public tests and patch notes, for example. More promotions there for the Victor. It's not the name of a new breakfast meal, though it is good news. It means the Victor, and some other variants of the Victor are somewhat cheaper, I'd expect. Scrolling down, we see all the different promotions and what have you. Now, that all used to be, in early beta, that all used to be ISN news feeds, which is all fluff to do with the Mechwarrior universe, and you'd get little tidbits about battles that were going on in the universe. I think now we're getting closer to final release this summer that it's actually more hard news on what's happening with the game and how development is progressing. Over on your far left there'll be 4 mechs here. Generally you'll have your lights there, heavies, mediums here, heavies there, and here you would have your assaults. Now, because I've been playing Mechwarrior for a little while, these are all my owned mechs, but what you can do, what generally happens if you were to install Mechwarrior Online from scratch, here you'd have trial mechs which change monthly, and that gives you a taste for what mechs are on offer before you actually commit to buying one. So let's have a look at the mech lab. Well, before we do that, actually, let me just explain what some of these details are at the bottom. Menu, here you've obviously got quit, log out options, so that's the general stuff really, which is video options, sound options, have a closer look. Control options, for example. And now you'll notice here that you can invert the joystick pitch. Yes, you can play Mechwarrior with a control stick if you wish, for that authentic feel. And I'm sure you can even play it with foot pedals. If you're into those racing games and you've got your wheels, you'll probably have a set of foot pedals that you can use for the acceleration in this game. Acceleration, he says? What do you ever mean, Leader B? Well, what I mean is this may look like a first-person shooter to a lot of people, but it's not. In this game, you have acceleration whereby you push down the key to go forward. You'll keep going forward once you take your finger off the throttle. You can increase the throttle by increments, you can decrease it by increments. Hell, you can even use the number pad to instantly go to a set speed. Well, unless of course you turn on throttle decay, which makes the gameplay much more like a traditional first-person shooter. You push the button down, you go to top speed instantly, you let go of the button, you stop. Now, personally, I had a go with that when they introduced this feature, but it's not something that I enjoyed. I didn't like the feature so much, it didn't feel right. There are times when you need to move slowly and creep around corners. So that's something I've turned off. Arm lock, however, is something that I have kept on. Now, that might be a little noobish to some of you people experienced with Mechwarrior, but you'll see where the difficulty in control when we go into a match, you'll see just why I've got arm lock on, because in this game you don't just have one reticle like a traditional FPS either. You have two. One of them's a reticle for the weapons placed in your arms, the other a reticle for the weapons placed in your mech's torso. Now, if any of you don't know what I'm on about, you'll see when we jump into a match and I'll explain all that. So, like I say, you've got the mechs here, which you can access through the Mech Lab. Now currently, the only mechs that I have are a Catapult K2, the Fang, which is a Dragon variant, a premium mech. Basically, if you've played World of Tanks, you'll be familiar with gold tanks. It's similar to them, as they earn 30% extra credits than regular mechs do. Sorry for my slurping there, I've got myself a little coffee here. It is the middle of British summertime, I've got my fan on above me, so if you can hear a whoop 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 sound, well, I do apologise, but it is absolutely baking hot this time of year. What date is it? It's the 12th of July, so those of you in Britain on the 12th of July will know what I'm talking about. Next up, an Assault Class Awesome 8Q. Now, it's not the only awesome variant, but it's the only awesome variant I own. As an Assault Class, they're really quite good at taking damage. The lightest of the assaults, so therefore the fastest, and is quite a large mech as well, so pretty easy to shoot. Another one, another premium mech. This time it's a medium, completely different play style, the X5, and that's I'd say that's the equivalent of Scouts in World of Tanks, if you're familiar with that. You'll probably notice that I'm going to compare this game to World of Tanks quite a lot, but that's no bad thing. Finally, as I say, finally, yes, finally, a Jägermech 6DD, which is generally a mech for favouring ballistics weapons. And if you don't know what I mean by favouring ballistic weapons, another slurp of my coffee there. What I mean by favouring ballistic weapons is that when you actually get into the Mech Lab and you've bought your first mech, you can customise them. and all different mech variants carry several different hardpoints. Missile hardpoints, for example, for rockets, short-range missiles, long-range missiles. Energy hardpoints, which are for your general sci-fi weapons like lasers, large pulse lasers, medium pulse lasers, long-range and extended range versions. PPCs, which are particle projection cannons. They're all energy weapons which don't use ammunition, whereas ballistics do. And ballistics come in all sorts of varieties. You've got your excellent mech-sized shotguns, the LBX-10s. You have your autocannons ranging from AC-2s, AC-5s, AC-10s and AC-20s, and the number denotes the damage that those weapons do. There is also what is known as an Ultra AC-5, which still does 5 damage per shot, but it is actually a more rapid fire variant. Very useful, but very prone to burning through ammunition quickly and prone to jamming. I have had a stint with one, and I can't say I got on with it very well. Pardon me. Now, down in the bottom left, before I bore you to death, you got your trial mechs, and as I said, these change on a regular basis for those of you that are just installing this game and giving it a whirl. You have your lights, Commando, Blackjack is your medium, currently, with horrible heat efficiency. Look at that, 0.59. Now, personally, I try and get something above 1 as a general rule. Anything below 1 is awful, because in this game you can overheat from doing certain tasks. Generally, that's firing your weapons. Another difference between ballistics and energy weapons, for example, other than the fact that ballistic weapons do require you to carry extra ammo, is that while energy weapons tend not to rely on ammunition and you have an infinite amount of uses from them, they also tend to generate more heat within your mech, and if you overheat your mech you will shut down, which is the last thing you want to do in a game of Mechwarrior Online. You see, if you were playing Counter-Strike, for example, running around ACOG scoping people in the face, you know, after firing a few shots of that, you wouldn't suddenly expect to be frozen in place, unable to move. Now, that can happen if you aren't careful with when and where and how much you fire your weapons in Mechwarrior. Ballistic weapons do generate heat, just not as much. Catapult. Again, I'm going to compare this to World of Tanks again. Now, this particular catapult variant, the C4, 50 firepower, jump jets. Yeah, this one is equipped with long-range missile 20s, and when I'm comparing it to World of Tanks, long-range missiles are basically the artillery of Mechwarrior Online. So while you don't get the overhead view and you require your teammates or yourself to get a lock on them, basically a long-range missile boat's role is to sit at the back of the team and support them from a distance, much like the artillery does in World of Tanks. And finally, we've got our assault class again. The Atlas is currently the heaviest mech in game, tonnage-wise, at 100 tons. Able to carry huge amounts of firepower, plenty of heat sinks, lots of armour. So yeah, once again, World of Tanks, this is your heavy class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a game, show you a little bit about what's going on, what I've got on the mechs that I'm choosing to use in this match, which will be my dragon, Fang. And we'll go in the loadout and just quickly show you what's on here before we jump into a round. So in the mech lab you have your loadout, modules, camo spec, and what's in your cockpit. Now for the most part, if you're not intending to spend Mechwarrior credits, which is once again the equivalent of World of Tanks gold, you'll be spending most of your time in the mech lab. And in the mech lab you'll be met with this screen. You obviously won't have this mech, you may have this mech, I don't know, but the majority and the bulk of the mech lab is customising your mech with different weapons, different loadouts, and customising it. So yeah, I'd say for people who are not familiar with this, before we start a game, Mechwarrior Online, if I could narrow it down, is a mix between World of Tanks, slow-paced tacticalness, and customisation of Gran Turismo maybe, and a mishmash of a first-person shooter. So it's very unusual. Nothing on the market that I can really compare it to quite at the moment. So what we've got here is the Fang, which, like I said, is a dragon variant. The dragon is a heavy mech, which is 60 tons, and what I've got on it here is a ballistic weapon, because you can see the hardpoint restrictions of this mech are, well, if I go back here, what you can see the hard points that this mech is restricted to, and it has 2 ballistic hardpoints in its right arm, 3 energy hardpoints, 2 in the left arm and 1 in the left torso, a missile hardpoint, and an anti-missile system hardpoint, that is AMS, useful for shooting down enemy missiles that are locked onto you. In the details section you can see what's fitted to your mech. Weapon wise, I have 2 large pulse lasers and an auto cannon 10. Equipment wise, I have double heat sinks. I don't have jump jets, but what I do have is an extra light engine. Now I know what you're thinking, XL? XL must mean extra large. Now, that's a double-edged sword. It means both. An extra light engine weighs much less than a standard engine of the same size. So if I had a standard engine 300, it would weigh twice as much as what this engine does, but cost half the price. What fitting an extra large engine has allowed me to do is save some weight because it's extra light, and that allowed me to fit all sorts of other weapons and items to my mech. It's allowed me to fit 2 large pulse lasers, for example, and a hefty AC-10, which takes up a fair amount of slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots. That's a big gun, and it weighs a lot. So I needed to free up some space, and the extra light engine allowed me to do that. Now, how it's a double-edged sword, however, an extra light engine takes up the same amount of space within your centre torso that a standard engine would, but extra light engines also take up space in your left and right torso, which makes it much easier to be destroyed by having your engine destroyed. if you lose your engine, you lose your mech. You can lose limbs in Mechwarrior Online. You can lose your left arm, you can lose your right arm, you can even lose a leg, and your mech will still zombie through the match until you're killed. But lose your engine and poof, it's all gone. What else I have on my mech here? AC-10 ammo in the head. I've got quite a small cockpit, so that's not too bad a place to put it in my opinion, because your ammunition can explode, which is another downside that energy weapons don't have. So a small target means I'm less likely to be shot in the head and lose that ammunition. Some more AC-10 ammo in my legs. Why in my legs? People generally don't tend to shoot your legs. Smart people do. But most people aim for the large centre mass of a mech. 2 double heat sinks in my extra light engine to increase my heat efficiency, because these large pulse lasers ain't cool. And when I say ain't cool, I don't mean not down with the kids. I mean, every time they fire, they generate 8.5 heat, which, let's have a look at our traditional ballistic weapon here, only generates a measly 3 per shot, which is a benefit that energy weapons don't have. And you'll see a pattern here that energy weapons generally don't rely on ammunition, are heavier, and generate a lot of heat. So you generally need to dedicate more space in your mech to heat sinks and getting a good heat efficiency, or being really good at managing your heat and using cool shots wisely. So anyway, instead of boring you with this talking, let's jump into a match and see what it's all about, because it is a let's play. So, let's get out of the mech lab. This is the mech I'll be using, and let's launch into a match.